Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the Fantasy 420, where today we are going to be discussing last year's number one player in all of fantasy football, being Patrick Mahomes, and what I think he's going to do early on in the 2019 NFL preseason. So, the first question I think we should ask ourselves when discussing Patrick Mahomes is, do you expect a season similar to 2018? Obviously, he had an insane season. In my personal league, which is a standard point 0.5 PPR league with bonuses for long touchdowns, he came in at about 442 fantasy points, which was high and above the number one player in the league. Number two was Matt Ryan at around 375 points. Big Ben was around 367 fantasy points. So, would you expect him to do that? And I would say that the evidence points more towards yes, and maybe more than that number, than no and not that number. And I will obviously go into my reasons why. The number one being the AFC West is an extremely weak division, I believe, and should be the second weakest division in the NFL this upcoming year, with that obviously being a lower half league in terms of strength. First team being the Raiders. I don't have faith in John Gruden and their system after they traded Khalil Mack away, and now they're saying they're open to trading the picks they traded for. So it's obviously a very interesting thing with them. Plus, they are staying another season in Oakland, so I don't think they'll have that Vegas boon for their first season in Vegas upcoming. So that's kind of a stinker for their year. But they're going to focus more on picks and development this season, so I believe they will finish last in that division. Then I believe the Broncos will probably end up rebuilding by the end of next year. They have a new coach. They have a new quarterback who's aging in Joe Flacco, so I do expect them to take a quarterback early on in the draft who won't play, and they will have to breed him. And then they also have DT gone, and I expect Emmanuel Sanders to he has said he doesn't want to renegotiate his deal, so he might be traded or gone, which means they would have a new wide receiver core as well. So basically, I would expect them to do a lot of Philip Lindsay next year and pray that defense keeps them in, wins them games, and gets them into the playoffs. But I think by the end of the year, it's more likely they'll be looking at a rebuild. And then finally, yes, I do believe the Chargers are a good team that will probably make the playoffs, but they have a lot more question marks than the Chiefs do. Phillip Rivers is age 37, whereas Mahomes is age 23. I mean, Joey Bosa, Keenan Allen, Melvin Gordon in that core all are insane injury risks who have missed significant portions in recent years. So I'm just not sure about the Chargers, and I would rather bet on Kansas City to have a return to 12-4 than Chargers at 12-4. And I would expect the Chiefs to not only win that division, but also be my early Super Bowl pick, but we'll get onto that later. There's also question marks surrounding the team that beat the Chiefs last year in the AFC Championship game, being the Patriots, with Robert Kraft and maybe Gronkowski retiring, maybe more. But the Kraft thing, I think, is really big. And if you were to have an indication that the Patriots dynasty might be falling, that would be it. So another big reason I see Mahomes probably continuing on with last year is his coach. So Andy Reid is the seventh most winning coach in the league now, but he doesn't have a championship, so that ranks him number one all time. So I believe he's going to keep them hungry. He's going to tell them that this is the year they strike, with the Patriots being down, with the Steelers losing Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell, that this is their year, and they have all their players back on the offensive end with Kelsey, with freaking Tyreek. Watkins looks like he's coming back. So this is going to be their year. He really wants to win. Reed's getting older, so I think he's not going to let on the gas at any point, and it's just going to be go, 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 go. I believe the obvious largest negative with Mahomes in comparison to last year And it could become a positive, though, is Kareem Hunt not being there. Granted, obviously, 7 TDs receiving and his game breaking ability. A few of those were over 40 yards. That I'm not going to say that's a positive right off the bat. But their backup, who's coming into the likely starting role, is Damian Williams, who's primarily a pass catching back. They will most likely bring back Sharkandrick West, who's been there for years, and they always end up re-signing him, who's also a pass catcher. Spencer Ware is a free agent, and he's rumored to be looking elsewhere. So I'm sure they're going to look at free agency and upgrade that position. And with the Chiefs being a good team, upper echelon with high-end hopes to next year, I'm sure with running back they'll be able to pick somebody off of free agency who will either look to invigorate their career or play on a championship contender, maybe like a LaShawn McCoy, which would be awesome for Mahomes, but somebody similar to that would lessen the Kareem Hunt workload. But that could also mean that they just throw the running out the window and just let Mahomes in his second real year as a starter, but third year in the league, just go bonkers with reading that offense, and he could eclipse last year and break an NFL record. So there's always that game-breaking ability and talent with Mahomes, where he is my number one quarterback, and I believe in him, and I would take him. So the last couple of things I'm going to point out. I will say that the Chiefs will have a target on their back. They started last year with being that team that was kind of an unknown. The Chargers were expected to win that division, and with Mahomes, we weren't really sure. Now everybody knows about them. They're going to give them their best game, and they're going to be in a lot of shootouts, and they're going to have to play their best game because their other teams are going to be playing their best game because they are aware of the Chiefs. Finally, the Vegas co-favorite with the Patriots, and like I said, I might expect that to go down depending on the Kraft situation moving forward and what happens with Gronkowski. But as of right now, they are a Vegas co-favorite, which is always a good thing. So with all that being said, early on, where would I pick Patrick Mahomes? This is obviously an extreme grain of salt because we don't know where players are going to be picked, where players are going to sign. If Le'Veon Bell goes to Indianapolis, that'd be a huge move for Luck. The draft has to happen. So there's obviously still a lot to be said. But as of right now, in early on draft predictions, I would start considering him at around pick 10. So that first tier of running backs, Hopkins, Adams area, and then I would start considering Mahomes, especially depending on your league size. Double quarterback, 6 points per touchdown on a quarterback. I would obviously bump him up to, like I said, around pick 10. If it's a double quarterback league, he's obviously number one, but I would probably end up picking him at around pick 15 or 20, which he's being at around Fantasy Pros ranked right now at around 30, so that's a significant jump up from the start of the third round. In a 12-team league, that'd be probably the end of the second, but from that to the end of the first to the start of the second round, that's a pretty big jump. And that being said, quarterbacks are usually slept on in the first few rounds because position scarcity, you need to play 2 running backs, and there's only one being played per team, or you only need to play 1 quarterback, and there's 1 quarterback per team, vice versa, yada, yada. But that being said, he's a game-breaking talent, and there's a lot of question marks on those second-tier guys where Mahomes is the safest 25 points in the league with the largest upside in the league. I don't really see very many games where he's going to get you below 25 points, and there's a chance he could go for 40 plus more than anyone in the league. So with the talent that he has, the situation, like I said, being, you lose Hunt, but pass catchers are going to fill in with Williams and most likely Sharkandrick West, whoever they sign. And then Watkins, Kelsey, and Tyreek. All those guys are coming back, and it just looks really good. I'm not going to bet on Ryan to only score 70 points less, and Ben to score around 80 points less. So all the other dudes behind him, if you're going to pick them above Mahomes or around Mahomes, they were scoring 100 points last year, less than Mahomes. And I just don't really see a situation besides Mahomes getting hurt or Indianapolis signing Bell and then Luck being healthy a whole season where one of those guys covers that 100 points and eclipses Mahomes. I mean, Rodgers is going around 14 picks later on fantasypros.com. So you're getting a 1 round discount, but you're betting on a coach who's never coached before on LaFleur, that division with the Vikings and the Bears. And, he's a lot older than Mahomes. Maybe a breakdown for Rodgers in physicality. Um, yes, Luck is, if they did sign Le'Veon Bell, the talent is there for him to be the number one quarterback, but there's a lot more injury risk, and only 17 picks later, they might not sign Le'Veon Bell, and he could get hurt. And there's a lot more question marks around Luck, and I think he had sort of a blessed year with that team and how well they did. I don't expect Ebron to score that many touchdowns, and I expect defenses to play the pass a little bit more. So maybe the running game kicks up. Maybe the offensive line takes a dip that I believe may have overachieved at being around a top 10 offensive line last year. But Watson would be nice, but once again, injury risk and everybody else, they would have to eclipse 100 points to beat Mahomes at that number one spot. And I just think if you're getting him at around a round later than those guys, and I believe in Mahomes, I might as well just take him and maybe even reach because I like him and I like watching him play. And I think that talent is going to, you know, go into next year. And a lot of people would say, well, if you think he's going to be the number one player next year, wouldn't you take him number one? And I would say, no, with the position scarcity, and obviously you also play your league. If players are loving Mahomes, then you take him a little bit higher than you would want. But also with the stigmata around picking quarterbacks in round 1 or 2, I would wait a little bit. And I still think early to mid round 2 is definitely me buying big on Mahomes. So I wouldn't take him early round 1 because I think those top tier running backs and receivers are a little bit too important to pass up. I love Hopkins and Devontae this year. I think they're going to go off and be far and away the number 1 and 2. But I would buy into Mahomes a lot higher than he's going into right now. If you have an early draft and you're drafting soon, I would definitely take Mahomes earlier than they're being projected. And assuming he's healthy and a whole lot doesn't change going into next season, which I don't expect to, like an injury, I would definitely buy in big to Mahomes. And we will do more videos where we talk about him later. But I did want to do a deep dive into him early on, and I think it warranted his own video. So I will talk to you guys tomorrow. It was a pleasure, and I hope you all have a great day.